Welcome back to the Restaurant Growth Show podcast. Today, we are joined by Chris Wizner, CEO of Vivid Candi, a leading marketing agency specializing in helping restaurants grow. With over 20 years of experience and a track record of working with over 100 plus restaurants, Chris brings a deep expertise in digital marketing, influencer campaigns, and ad strategies. Chris, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me, Gordon. Thank you, Jose. Doing great. What about you guys?
We're doing good, man. Again,
Very
we,
good.
we we mentioned this before we started recording here. We're thoroughly entertained by your Zoom background. This is definitely the most animated, customized, exciting. There's a lot of emotion going on in the background there. And to our listeners, to our listeners who are only listening, you're missing out. So you probably want to tune into the video to see what's going on in Chris's background.
And you can count on maybe some inspiration from Jose with this background. It's quite something.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, well, I
Excellent.
admire that virtual back, Jose. But if you guys ever need an upgrade, talk to us.
There you go. It's a great sales pitch. So, Chris, before we jump in to the questions we got here for our interview, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Chris Wizner. I'm founder and CEO of Vivid Candi. I have been running this agency, believe it or not, since I was 16 years old. I started it with a Taco Bell paycheck, believe it or not. It's a long story, but we are a 360 full service agency. We specialize in restaurants, hotels, and food. So absolutely, we are very food centric, very food passionate. It comes from a deep history because my mother was a waitress all my life. So I grew up in the restaurant industry. I had my birthdays there. I knew all her coworkers. By the time I was 16, I got my first job. It was Taco Bell. My second job, which I did at the same time as I started my company, was Marie Callender's. So, I got the experience doing the hardest things at Taco Bell, wiping tables, taking the orders, upselling. But telling you, that was still one of the hardest jobs I had to my entire life. I learned a lot. And when I was at Marie Callender's, I got to do a little bit of everything too. So I got to be a host, I got to be a waiter, I did some back of kitchen, food running. So I totally get it. So I've lived, breathed, eat restaurant life all my life, and it's my greatest passion. Our office headquarters are in Los Angeles, specifically Malibu. So we are lucky and blessed to somehow have made it so that we can see the surf breaking every day and the Malibu Pier, and we have beautiful offices with photography studios. And although most of our people, thanks to the pandemic, they're all in the cloud. So I don't get to go to the office as much as I used to, but we do have it. And we welcome in-person meetings. But yeah, that's a little bit about us. I can tell you a few more things really quick. Other than Vivid Candi, I've always been an entrepreneur, so I've been involved in various companies and organizations. One I'm very proud of was I was president and chairman of the Malibu Chamber of Commerce. And when I left, it was no longer called the Malibu Chamber of Commerce because I was blessed with the opportunity to lead the merger. And I merged it with a city that nobody would ever expect to merge together with Malibu, being a big name on its own. But another big name was Pacific Palisades, and now it's the Malibu Pacific Palisades Chamber of Commerce. And while I was there, I did a lot for restaurants. So I created the first ever restaurant hospitality group. I also created a really kind of one of a kind platform that is app-based called MEEP. And the acronym stood for Malibu Employee Incentive Program. And it was a post-pandemic solution to employee retention and recruiting problems that we specifically heard from our restaurant hospitality committee. And it was really cool. Like when I worked at Marie Callender's, if I came on my off hours, I got an employee discount, half off, right? Mm-hmm. So we took that idea, so simple, and we globalized it. And we said, what if you're working in Malibu and you show this little app that proves you're who you say you are, you just get a menu of places where you get that same kind of global employee discount, but all kinds of other restaurants because they're helping one another. So in order to be in the program, they had to offer a discount. I'm really proud to say we enrolled 1,829 employees over 24 businesses, and it keeps growing and growing. It got sponsored by the city of Malibu with cash. It got sponsored by HRL Laboratories, and it's been very successful. We're going to roll it out to other chambers of commerce across the country hopefully soon. So this is definitely my wheelhouse, but I welcome all of your restaurant marketing questions because this is what I love to do.
Fantastic. What an impressive initiative. Shout out to Malibu. as well. We understand, the restaurant industry is going through a really tough transition, and retention and labor is at the forefront of those challenges. So what a great initiative. So let's jump into restaurant marketing, like the man says. So why don't we talk a little bit about AI and how it's transforming not just the restaurant industry, but it's transforming the world. Let's be honest. Listen, Chris, how can restaurants use artificial intelligence to supercharge their marketing efforts and stand out in a competitive market?
Well, I think before I get to that detail, I'm going to say this. If we all grew up in like the 80s, remember when there was no calculators and you would have to do math the long way. Then
Yeah.
calculators came about and you never did that again, right?
Yeah.
Now that ChatGPT and other AIs are out, think of them like a calculator for critical thinking. I think to talk about it, you have to understand what it is. So if it can handle critical thinking, very complex problems, bigger than your Googles, it's a Google on steroids, in my opinion. And we have since just accelerated everything we're doing. I mean, I'll tell you, like, one of the coolest first stories that I heard when I started knowing that like ChatGPT is a game changer. I had a client, he's been a restaurant client of mine for 20 years. Amazing guy named Nando, Italian guy. And he tells me, he's like, hey, Chris, so I'm opening up a restaurant in Texas, and let me tell you the name. And I'm like, of course, being a marketing guy, I'm like, well, what's the name? What's the brand mean? But then I asked him, like, wow, that name is incredible. Where did you come up with that? And he says, funny story. My 20-year-old son that's going to college told me, use ChatGPT because him and his partners couldn't agree on a name for a restaurant that was going to be both seafood and steaks. Simple. And he put it in ChatGPT, and the name that came out was Ocean Ranch. Immediately they fell in love with it. And that's the brand. So, like, if AI is naming a restaurant brand, then imagine all the rest to come. And I'll tell you how we use it. So I would say for the last year, when we a lot of times will develop brand guidelines as a first step for a restaurant client. So we have like a steady foundation. It's hard to market something if it's disjointed and everybody has their opinion and they're going different ways with the on-brand words, on-brand photos. So we actually use ChatGPT now to do, I would say, 90% of the work when we make brand guidelines. It tells us ideas for on-brand words. It will write paragraphs. I can tell it, hey, write me a paragraph, an introductory paragraph about Cas de Soleil restaurant using words like House of Sunshine, like heartfelt hospitality, this. And I'm blown away every time. It's 99% out of the gates, incredible content. It's superior to, to be honest, we used to hire all kinds of copywriters. We've since just plummeted in copywriters.
Right.
We don't need them. ChatGPT is the best copywriter you could ever have, in my opinion. It's great for inspiration, and it's also great for, I'll tell you a few other uses that we'll use for it. So like social media captions. I don't write them anymore. I will put the most amazing caption together ever because I do know it's about 50% of the value of the post is to caption the text. And it's incredible because what we'll do is I'll look on one screen at my brand guidelines. And I see my list of on-brand words. And I'll tell it, hey, write me a caption for Olo Restaurant, one of our clients, and use words like a touch of Capri and genuine Italian and this. And it will just write the most amazing thing. I can actually also upload the image and ask it to describe that image because they have what's called ImageNet, the biggest database of images on ChatGPT. So they can look into an image. They can tell you what they see. They can tell you who they see. It's pretty phenomenal. So social media captions, writing brand guidelines, writing anything. Save your money, save your time, be more efficient, be more on brand. And honestly, it's just smarter. I mean, if it's the best possible solution, why not use it? I have no ego in that anymore. I just feel like as a marketer, now I can do more of my time. I don't have to spend all the time copywriting. Now I can do all kinds of other out of the box ideas and make things better and faster and get more done. Another thing that I really love it for is like critical thinking. And that's something that like I don't think enough people understand this. It's not Google where you just say this, or this. You can ask it, you can describe in like a 3 or 4 sentences. My restaurant is having a hard time with labor. My costs have gone up, food costs have gone up. What are the best options to increase my profitability? Like a very long-winded thing. and you would be amazed and impressed. It will break up the ideas and the solutions. And I will tell you, like, more times than not, it's about 90 to 95% accurate. There's something there. And what you do is you take the best parts of what it inspires. That's all. Use it as like an inspiration tool. But it's quite incredible. I mean, I'll laugh on this note and make some people laugh. I had a fight with my wife one day. And I didn't know what was going on because I have a newborn baby. She's probably going through some hormones. Sorry, babe, you hear this? But I was dealing with some crazy stuff for a minute. I asked ChatGPT. I tell it exactly what's going on, like my therapist. And oh my God, I kid you not, the solution was the most comprehensive solution. Like I hired an expert therapist, and it had actionable ideas. I took those ideas and I immediately executed them. And guess what? My wife tells me a day later, she's like, wow, you're so in tune with me. Like, you're really listening. Like, I don't know what changed. And I had to tell her, like, oh, okay, so babe, it was ChatGPT. But I did the work of the executing ideas.
That's
But
what matters.
quite incredible. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, what do you guys think about
Oh,
ChatGPT?
I'll tell you
I can
a
flip this a
counter
little.
story to that. I'll tell you a counter story to that. So my girlfriend, she's convinced, I mean, she's sure that I am really the worst at ordering on a drive-through. And then this time she's like, I'll text you what I want, what you need to pick up at the grocery store, like the full instructions, right? And she sent me these super rich all emojis with like forbidden things and arrows and stuff of the instructions of what I needed to get. It was a disaster. I totally bombed it. And I'm like, what did you do? Like, that was so confusing. And we share the same account. And then all of a sudden I look and I'm like, instructions for Jose to order to pick up the food and groceries. And it was like she had put it on ChatGPT. It totally bombed. But for the most part, I agree with you. Like I've asked, put together a plan to revamp my consulting practice, and there it is. It's maybe I'm not doing it as fast as I was committed to this as proposed, but it's working out. I have, like you said, chats of the branding of each of my clients where I bumped everything that I need to do for anything. It's just the same conversation. Just pull it out. It's so quick. It's so fast, and so many ideas that to not even to be considered before having a conversation with ChatGPT. It's extremely powerful. And if you know what you're doing, it's even more powerful. Like, for example, I can pull and say, make it in the tone of David Ogilvy, or in the words of Barack Obama, or with the tone of, right? It's just so powerful. I love it so much.
Well, and Jose too, something that a lot of people that are new to it too won't know right away is it gets smarter. You can ask it
Exactly.
for a better idea, and it'll
Exactly.
rewrite it and come back at it. And
Yeah.
another thing to understand too is like I think the best show I ever saw that explained ChatGPT the best to me was it was Bill Gates' show on Netflix. It just came out. It's called What's Next. There's a whole episode about AI, and it very much goes into ChatGPT. And to explain how it thinks, to understand that, it goes down little forks and it finds the best possible option. It's also seen more. It's been trained on everything that it can find on the internet. Okay. I mean, just imagine that. Like, our human brains don't have the capacity to see as much as this thing has. So
Hey,
you get a new respect for it once you understand that. And when you understand it, you also trust it a little bit more too, which I think a lot of people don't trust it right now, which is crazy. Trust in AI. Let's hope not for Judgment Day. Terminator. That's always
yeah.
going to come up. Once you trust the tool, like I trust the calculator, I think it's fantastic. I think it's definitely one of the biggest game changers I've ever seen in the industries. So much to
Incredible.
say on that, but I know you have
Eh,
a few
eh,
other questions, so I'm
Yes,
happy to go.
yes. Thank you, thank you. So on the flip side, and now that we've basically brought the solution out, let's take a couple of steps back and look at what are some of these common mistakes that restaurants are making with their marketing, and how can they avoid them?
Okay, oh, there's many. Like, let me give you one of my first favorite ones. One of my first favorite ones is, you know what? Now that I'm hiring your agency, let's forget everything we've ever done. That is all trash. Everything that we've ever done in marketing was trash before we hired you or before they did whatever. That is the biggest number one misconception. Because as a marketer that has done this all of my life, I've spent, as many hours I could ever imagine. I can never count them on this. I can tell you it's actually gold. Your previous history in marketing, your marketing data is gold. Your Google Analytics, what you spent on Google Ads, what you spent on Meta, even if it failed, it's gold. I'll tell you, a way I used that one time to become very successful was in 2020, a company called Mod Juicers contacted us. They're number one juicer in Australia. They came to the US. They only had like 15-month sales. They didn't understand how to do sales online and they weren't doing too well. What we did, the number one thing I did is I mined 8 months of data that they did themselves internally and they paid for all these campaigns. They probably paid like, I don't know, $10,000 plus. It's a good sample. And the number one trick was I looked and I segmented everything Google Analytics to people that only bought because I want to repeat those people, right? I want more people that bought the A account. And I found that 92% of those users were iPhone users. And anyone that knows digital marketing knows you can actually target only a device and specifically an iPhone. And what we found was iPhone users just typically they have higher dispensable income, they paid more for their phone, they have a healthier lifestyle. Many things about the Apple brand were in parallel with this client's brand. And when we fine-tuned all the campaigns to hit only Apple iPhones, and we optimized all our landing pages for that, we got them up to about $30,000 to $35,000 a month of sales in record time. And it was as simple as mining the previous marketing data. So that is one misconception. But I got a few more I'll give you guys. So another fun one because so many restaurants I've dealt with. I know so many that think that their servers or managers are capable of doing what we do. So you know what? Their server is going to double as their social media person. They're going to save a few bucks, right? Oh my God. Look, yeah, anyone can post a picture and make a quick post, right? It does not mean it's effective. It does not mean that person's been trained how to actually be as efficient as possible in reaching your target audience and getting the return on investment that you need. In many ways, it may cost you more because you're going to burn out that employee. You're going to spread them thin. They're going to start saying, well, I'm not being paid for this. This is not my job description. I've heard that many times, and you'll lose them and you'll burn them. And really, at the end of the day, look, sometimes it pays to pay. It just does. And you got to hire somebody with experience that really knows and understands your business and that will reach that bottom line number that you need to. And social media is huge. The other thing that kind of goes with this too, and I hear this often, well, you know what? Instead of hiring an agency, because I'm on the agency side, instead of hiring an agency, I'm gonna hire a freelancer and I'm gonna just spend like $2,000 a month, but they're gonna do everything the agency does. Yeah, right. Okay, difference between agency and freelancers are huge. When you hire an agency like ours, we have nearly 30 people on the team. We have a specialist for everything. We have video editors, we have influencer managers, we have pay-per-click specialists, SEO specialists, copywriters, photographers. You're getting 30 people, not one. One person cannot do the jobs of all those people and not at the level. The other thing too is project management. Freelancers are very well known not to be diligent in project management. If you're running a restaurant, you want things done and you want them done efficiently. You don't want to be waiting. You don't want to be told it's going to be done tomorrow and it's not. Tomorrow comes and you have to follow up on them now. So I think it's really a night and day contrast between freelancers and agency. And then there's also the option of, I know a lot of restaurants will be like, you know what, I'm going to just hire somebody internally. Well, let me ask them this. Do you know how to run a marketing agency and have experience in that? Because that's what you're doing when you're going to hire a marketing professional in-house. And you should know how to manage that person and get take them to their fullest potential. If you don't know how to run a marketing agency, don't try to dabble in that business. It's going to cost you more than it's going to make you. And by the way, ultimately, anyone that you hire for a marketing position in a restaurant, the first thing they're going to tell you, they need resources. And they're going to actually, not only are you going to be paying them, now you're going to be paying them, plus you're going to be hiring an agency, plus you're going to be paying for all the marketing budget that they approve. So all of a sudden you're probably going to be triple. I think there's a good size and time and place to hire people in-house. And it's usually when you're a chain and you have, let's say, a dozen restaurants, that's a good time to hire a marketing professional in-house because you actually need somebody to manage a team like ours. You need somebody to be that point person. But if you're smaller than that, I don't recommend that. I think for what the cost of one of our retainers will be, and I'll just flat out say it, hiring an agency like us that specializes in restaurants, on the lowest end, we might be able to do something for $3,000 a month. That's a retainer. Most of our clients are going to range between 7,500 to 12,000 a month. But if you think of the cost of that, we cost about 30 people doing everything for you that can do everything start to finish will cost the same as hiring one person internally, and you're not going to have to manage them nearly as much. So these are many of the misconceptions and common mistakes. And I've got one or two more, though, that are fun because I geek out on this all day long. Trade is a big topic, right? So, like, restaurants depend on covers. They hire an agency to drive covers. But then they go back and you'll see, they'll be like, well, I don't know if it's really working or not. How can I track this? And there's a lot I can say about that. First off, you cannot track covers 100%. Now, when we have Minority Report technology and I can scan your eye and measure everything you saw, yes, but that's in the future. But we do know that marketing is responsible for 30 to 50% of your growth for a restaurant, and that's huge. So knowing that, you want to look at your month over month increases, same month versus previous year because seasonal for a lot of restaurants, and quarter over quarter growth. At the end of the day, marketing is funneling into everything. It's like a unicorn. It's there, but you're not going to be able to 100% track it. So you can track maybe at best, I'd say 15% of it. But the rest of it, you got to look at your top line numbers. You got to look that your covers are actually increasing. If they're increasing, you should be happy with your marketing agency. I mean, I would not complain if my numbers are going up. That means something is working. If you want to trace it, then you got to really silo that. And, the only thing that I can say in restaurant marketing is about 90 to 95% traceable is like doing a Google Ads campaign and pushing private parties and pushing catering. You can track that because they came off a keyword, we fired a pixel, and we know that that lead is owned by that source. There's no question. So, do a mix of the two. That's usually my suggestion. The other fun ones too that I see is I see some of the biggest restaurants are still on dinosaur POS platforms. They'll be on like Micros or something in a very old version. Scary. And then the last kind of common mistake I'll say, and this kind of goes back to private party marketing, which is one of my biggest expertises. I've saved a lot of restaurants that are suffering from lack of covers by replacing it with bulk covers from private parties. Many restaurants think that the only time to push private parties is basically from September to the end of the year. Why? Holidays. They think, oh, well, I'm going to get these holiday parties, but that's the only time people do parties, right? That's not true at all. You could take a 3-4 month window that they thought it was and take it all year long because there are so many types of private parties that book a restaurant. You have private birthday parties. You have everything related to weddings. That's, let's see, rehearsal dinners, bridal showers, bachelorette parties. You have baby showers, going to the next step of this. You have reunions, graduations that happen each year as schools get out. And then even a weird one, but this one makes money. Funeral parties, celebration of life. Well, guess what? There's a big funeral comes out, they have to eat, and they want to go somewhere nice, and they will Google it. So the amount of people that search these things all year long, I can tell you there's no doubt it's an annual business. And one of the most successful things I've done for restaurants is introduce that concept and roll that out and keep it going all year long. So those would be some of the common mistakes. But any other questions you want to throw at me?
There's lots of, there's a lot to unpack there, Chris. And, almost too much to unpack in one episode. So we're definitely going to have you back on the show because I really want to unpack, private parties, tracking covers. I agree with you 100% on traceability or attribution, we call it over here, and how challenging attribution is with marketing and measuring your ROI. But I love your suggestions with private parties, etc. So let's switch gears a little bit here, Chris. Influencer marketing is still, it's not just for the $1 million celebrities. There's micro influencing, there's local influencers. Can you talk to us a little bit about influencer marketing? What's the most efficient way for a restaurant to manage an influencer campaign?
Yep.
Tell me, what are your thoughts?
Many things I could say. A little background. I've been doing influencer marketing since 2017, which is basically when what just kind of came about. We were one of the first to pioneer that. We did the process legally, so we did a lot of legal compliance because we felt that was important. We worked with easily tens of thousands of influencers. Every month we set up between 150 to them. So, and in a variety of ways. The biggest chunk of my team is actually dedicated to influencer marketing. For all restaurants that we deal with, influencer marketing is easily in the top three marketing channels that's the most successful. I can tell you about 80% of the time, it's a good fit for a restaurant. Tried a few different ways. Maybe it's just not for them. But the first thing that I would say is like step one is restaurateurs got to basically manage their own expectations and understand the statistical odds that are important here. So when we do it, we never ever pay when we're talking for restaurants for an influencer. We believe in influencers of all sizes, all different vertical categories, micro to macro. But mostly for most restaurants, you're gonna be looking at more micro influencers. It's very rare that you're gonna do somebody a million plus. I mean, it's great if you get them, but the micro influencers that are 10 to 50,000 followers, but highly focused on food and local, for instance, those are typically the ones that really drive the sales. That people come in and show their phone. I saw this. I want this. Or you start hearing a lot of requests for something that was only seen in social media. So, rule number one, if you're a restaurant, don't pay for influencers. Give them free food, give them the experience. Typically, the amount of food is around $150 or so. You know, an entree each, an appetizer, a dessert, like enough for two people to enjoy. And when we reach out to these influencers with this offer, so to say, because it's kind of sales, for us to get the influencer to work with the restaurant, we have to pitch them. Out of 100 influencers that we pitch that to, typically we'll see about 10 or 20 of them say, yes, I would do that deal. And then we present the best qualified options to our client. Out of the ones that our client approves, I would say, you know, out of those 10 or 20, we might go forward with five. And out of five, one in every five typically is the one that carries the weight for the rest. It's the one that was the most effective. So, you know, it is kind of always this needle in the haystack, but that's marketing. So one in five of your influencers is going to have the impact you're looking for. The other four out of five, they're not hurting you, by the way. That's a misconception. They're adding value to your brand awareness. You may never measure what they brought, but you know, the one that did the best, like the things I've seen when it goes really right. Like we have this client, Sushi Dashi, up in the San Francisco Bay Area. One day, over a weekend, a reel that was done by an influencer was seen over 150,000 times. This restaurant was brand new. They had never pushed online orders. And all of a sudden, they saw a tidal wave of online orders come in. And I heard from the owners right away, like, oh my God, there's no other way people would have done that other than this one post. And this post got shared probably like 5,000 or 6,000 times. And we got lucky. That's the truth. That was the one in five unicorn that we're after. So you gotta check your expectations at the door. You gotta know that they're not all gonna win. If you think that way, you're being unrealistic. If you play the statistical odds, you're gonna be very successful. And when you find that one in five, take them back as like an ambassador of your brand and work with them every few months or a few times a year because you know they work. And now they can push a different dish, a different promotion. Other little tips too is like make sure you get a collaborative post. So you get share insights, you can get followers to jump to you. That's a must nowadays. Ask for a review when they do a visit. And what I mean is Google review, Yelp review, Open Table review. 82% of restaurant customers make a decision based on reviews. So the more positive, the better. And who's going to be more positive than the influencer that got this amazing experience? Hopefully it's good. So keep it good. So you get that review. But you can actually tell them as a part of the agreement, not only are you going to do a post, I want a review, and I also want the rights to the photos and videos you do. So you see what I'm doing here? I am multi-purposing. I'm taking one thing and I'm getting 3 times as much. I'm squeezing that lemon because efficiencies. So I would really recommend that. And as a final recommendation, like one thing we've done that's been super successful for restaurants, like probably my favorite thing that we've done. This year we actually started introducing this, and it was influencer parties. We opened up a restaurant called Selvins in Thousand Oaks. It was brand new. and we did an influencer party, and we had I think we had like 128 RSVPs, and we definitely had 120 to 150 influencers there. We got lucky. Some celebrities that were in the millions showed up. They were there. And what do we get out of this? Well, I'll give you like the KPI after that. So not only did we get all those people there, lots of bodies there, they're going to tell people anyways. That's a great thing. Filled the restaurant. We stress tested it because it was pre-open. So like we did that, and we did a media tasting event separately. But what we got was we got a gigantic bump on social media instantly, like huge. I think we grew like 1,000 followers in like 24 hours. It was a big growth for a brand new restaurant that's never existed. We probably got 300 or 400 stories. Our little story timeline had so many dots, it was crazy to keep up with it, to see all these people tag us and post about us. And while we were there, because we like to multi-purpose again, we kind of looked at it like they're all models and this is content. And we need content and great content to sell a restaurant. So we send professional photographers. We get all that, all of those beautiful photos in those moments. And we, of course, post a crowd release so that they all know we have the legal right to use this. And what's interesting too is we'll also share the professional photos with the specific influencers after that because they love photos of themselves. Let me tell you. And if you get a great shot of them, they're to be big fans that want to post about you and brag about you. So you just kind of fan that fire as much as you can. And that would be pretty much our advice there. There's other things you can do too with like groups, like birthdays. Find influencers and find their birthdays because they'll invite their friends who are most likely also influencers. So now you went to get one influencer and you got a group and you got the rest of the group for free. Plus, you can make them pay. So you can actually make money off that. The last example I'll give you is we had another client. They're called Mon Ami. They're in Santa Monica, very high-end, beautiful restaurant, sexy restaurant. And, we basically told an influencer, look, you're going to have your birthday party and you have 40 friends. We will comp the first drink for all of you guys because highest profit margin, but easiest to kind of comp. But you all have to pay for food. And then we did that and we definitely made thousands that night. It more than paid for itself. Not only were we paid as the restaurant was paid and made money, but it actually was promotion. So it was great. So those are some of the ideas when it comes to influencer marketing for restaurants. It's definitely our wheelhouse and what we love. And I think it's super effective, but like, people got to understand these little tips and tricks of the trade.
Right. Yeah,
I love it. Influencing the influencers. Go ahead, Jose.
Exactly. It's the nature, the human nature and vanity and rub egos and in a good way. And and keep people motivated because that's what makes it happen. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just it is the nature of what it is, and it is a powerful tool. So now switching a little bit from influencers and a little bit more on ad spend and measurable things. Let's talk about Google Ads. Okay. Mm-hmm. It definitely can be, I think it's one of the most underused tools out there by restaurants in the online. But what strategies like actually from the get-go, because I don't think they even think about it. I don't think it's something that they even conceive, and it's there to be used, underutilized. How can they make the best out of an ad spend for a restaurant?
Well, great question. So Google Ads, my personal favorite. If it wasn't for Google Ads, I probably wouldn't be as successful in business. I've been doing it for my own business for 20 years. I can tell you I've spent over $2 million of my own money. So when you spend your own money and you learn it that way, you really master it. And combined, I've probably spent somewhere north of 10 or $15 million, including other people's money on this. So the first thing I'd recommend for anyone doing Google Ads is don't do it yourself. Google Ads is designed to rip off DIYers. That's why it has this thing called Express Mode and Performance Max and display advertising. All of those things, any seasoned expert will tell you, is a waste and is not giving you the right insights, the right data, the right control. It'll take your money happily and you will get bare minimal results. So first advice is hire a real expert. Second advice is ask that expert, how much money have you spent? Treat that like they're air miles. It will say everything. If they say less than $10,000, don't waste your money with them. Don't trust them because They have not done enough time in there yet. So it really does come down to there's a lot of experience with the amount of money that you've spent on there, especially if they spent their own money like I have. That's the most valuable thing on earth. So on there, a few things I'll say is like a search campaign is not good for covers because you're going to be paying $4 to $8 a click in most cases. That's going to be way more than it's worth to acquire each customer. And each customer may end up costing you $80 to $200 to acquire a customer at the average cover. Not worth it. Don't do it. If you're going to do a search campaign, kind of back to private parties, you do it for private parties. You know, private party room, restaurant near me. Great keyword. Buy it. It's high intent. There's a lot of keywords like that. Restaurants with private rooms, restaurants to rent, restaurant buyouts. Buy those keywords, and it's worth it to pay $80 to $200 to acquire those customers if they're worth thousands of dollars. Then do it. Do it all day long, and it's very successful. If you're going to try to drive covers for Google Ads, I do this for a pretty good sized restaurant chain, and I handle a few of their locations. It's called Jinya, and they're a ramen noodle restaurant chain. And I handle in Denver, I handled all their marketing. And the best thing we did, one of the best things other than influencers, which they never thought was going to work, but did, was actually what's called a Google Local Store Visits campaign, which is specifically designed for restaurants and retail. And the cost per click now goes under $1 a click. So you could get down to 25 cents to $1. That's like 400, 500% less than a search keyword campaign. And what you measure is what's called driving directions. That's your number one KPI or key performance indicators, driving directions. You want people in person. Google knows that. So Google developed it so that this shows up on Google Maps, Google Gmail, YouTube, a few other platforms. And if they hit navigate and they navigate within, I think it's about 500 feet of your location, it pings their phone to see if they came within 500 feet. And that's how it confirms, indeed, we got a driving direction. It also tracks online orders and phone calls. So it's very much designed for this. I recommend you go that way. For a typical restaurant, you could do about $500 a month and be highly successful on that and target about 3 to 5 mile radius. I think that's the best possible way to go when you talk about Google Ads. So
I
those would
love
be
that.
some.
I
Yeah,
love that. That's
awesome.
great.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think that even the new enhanced conversions, I just love that platform. It is so powerful, and I think that it's so underutilized that I'd love all the restaurateurs that are listening right now to really really consider that, because there is so much that can be done and so much opportunity. It's amazing. Thank you for that validation, and I couldn't agree more. You have to have had experience of putting a lot of money into Google
Yes.
Ads to trust someone that actually knows, because everything, like you said, they're all to trick you to spend more for nothing. Like
I
they
mean,
will
you have
call
teams
you times.
to make this profitable. Oh yeah,
They'll call you all day long. Let's book a time. Let's book a time. They want to show you, try this. It's like, no, you just want me to spend more money. Okay, so just since we're running out of time,
Sure.
and this has been so rich, and thank you. I just love it. We can definitely, the three of us can go on forever on this one. We definitely need you back. Chris, what is, in one sentence, if you can, what is that you would tell a restaurateur audience the best advice?
Oh, I like this one. So I might stretch it to two sentences. It would be number one is don't neglect, devalue, or flat out cheap out on marketing. It has a 30 to 50% impact on your restaurant. It's not the first thing you cut. It's the thing you never cut, like electricity. Okay? And it will be part of your restaurant's overall success in attracting new customers, building brand loyalty, promoting your menus and specialty items, enhancing your online presence, and more. And by the way, fun statistic because I love stats. Over 90% of restaurant diners search online before they go and dine. So don't forget that one. That's not the thing that you cut. That's the thing that you keep, but you make sure it's working good. There's definitely people that are marketers that it's not going good. They're not reporting good KPI. They're not pivoting. And that's, another thing too is like get somebody that pivots because any great marketer knows you got to constantly pivot and adapt. It's always changing. You never get comfortable ever.
Take it from the seasoned marketer, Chris Wizner. Chris, that was wonderful advice. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon.
Yeah, absolutely. That is all the time we have for this episode. Chris, we're definitely going to have you back on because there's a lot more that we want to unpack, and there's a lot more useful tips that you're providing our listeners. So we love you for that.
Yeah.
So thank you. But Chris, now's your time to plug away. Where can people connect with you? What's your platform of choice?
Well, Google us, Vivid Candi. It's candy spelled with an I, or go to vividcandi.com. Again, candy spelled with an I. Or find us on social media, on Instagram specifically, at Vivid Candi, candy with an I. And it's Vivid, so V as in Victor, I-V-I-D, and then Candy, C-A-N-D-I. We believe in ourselves as like eye candy, something vibrant, something vivid, something sharp and highly saturated that attracts people. That's why we're Vivid Candi. So get in touch anytime. We're a 360 full service agency specializing in restaurants, and we love food, love restaurants, and we've been on both sides. We've worked in them, and now we market them. So it's an absolute joy and passion, and we're happy to talk to anyone that's interested.
Fantastic.
It all makes sense now. It is a candy waterfall you have behind.
Oh, yes. It could be.
I love it. It's up for interpretation. Yes. Speaking of plugs, this podcast is sponsored by Dine Pricing, real-time restaurant profitability. Dine Pricing uses artificial intelligence to improve restaurant profitability by dynamically updating menus across digital channels like Uber Eats, DoorDash, and Grubhub. Thanks again to Chris for joining us. Until next week, say goodbye, Jose.
Thank you, Gordon. Thank you, Jose. Cheers, guys.
Try. Do. And don't be scared. Marketing is here to help. Goodbye, Jose.
That's great. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chris. Sorry to cut you short there, but we're definitely going to have you back on. We're a couple of marketers ourselves, so you're speaking our language, and we know our listeners are really eating up by what you're saying. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, guys. Okay, bye.
You too. Thank you.